Hey guys, welcome to another episode of VTEC Academy. Once again, you're about to get schooled. I went and picked up my ZC motor that's going in Project Backmarker, and just kind of going over the condition of the motor right now, checking everything out. And it looks to be mostly there. There's a few little problems. One of the things I noticed was the throttle body. Although it looks like the JDM throttle body, I believe there's a solenoid missing. There's a little solenoid that normally goes up here, and it actually kicks the idle up slightly when you drop your foot off the throttle. That's missing, and sometimes that can cause a car to stall if you don't have the idle set high enough. So I'm going to take a look for one of those. I believe you can find them on 88 Integras, and you may also be able to find them on the SI motor. So I'm going to take a look, see if I can't find that. Next thing I noticed was the header on this, and the header is actually an OBD1 header. You can tell because on the back side is where the O2 sensor is. Normally on the OBD0 cars, the O2 sensor is up here on one of the runners up front. And the reason that is they're not heated O2 sensors. So if you have your O2 sensor in the back and you're like in stop and go traffic, when the weather's cold, they'll quite often throw a O2 sensor code. So we want that heater up front since we don't have a heated O2 sensor. If I decide at some point to switch to OBD1, we might save this header, but in reality, I think I want something aftermarket. This one's kind of a little bit dingy and weirdly painted red for some reason up here. The distributor is missing right now, but it's not that it came without one. That distributor is actually sitting back in my office. I lent it to one of my employees to troubleshoot his car, so I still have a distributor for it. I need to go get that and bring it back. Next thing is this wire harness was actually a converted wire harness. So if this car was probably a DX originally that it came out of, I noticed somebody wired that directly in. Normally there's a plug, and plus there's a 90 Integra resistor box. Now, I don't know if you know what the resistor box is for. The early OBD0 injectors and the Accord OBD1 injectors all required a resistor box. Otherwise, they would draw too much current and actually damage the computer. So I need to either put the right injectors in, or I need to find a resistor box. This one, I can't remember if it bolts in nicely into the chassis. If it does, I might just convert it back to having the 6-pin plug so I can plug it in. One of the other things I found was the speedo drive was broken on this. Obviously somebody pried on it with a screwdriver to try to get it out. I'll just grab the one off the old engine. They're all the same. Next thing is the hoses are pretty crusty. Although the main radiator hoses are in not too bad a shape, I went ahead and ordered new ones of those. The hoses on the back side, the little passages that go through the throttle body to kind of preheat it, to go back for the idler control valve and stuff like that, and some of the other hoses on the back side that route water in various places. You pinch them and they're a little bit crunchy. That means they're going to fail. So I need to look for those hoses. Not sure they're available anymore. I'll have to see. They're actually molded hoses. Might wind up with just bulk hose rather than the molded hoses. As you can see here, this engine is pretty stained. You can see that the aluminum is really dark. Somebody had taken the valve cover and tried to strip it down, and then actually went in there and scraped some of the paint out. I'm going to have to do something about this block. In fact, that's going to be an interesting thing. I put a post on Facebook asking people what their recommendations were for cleaning blocks. And people, one of the things that I always heard in the past that worked pretty well was oven cleaner. I think what I'm going to do is choose about 5 of the chemicals that people were suggesting and try them out on the block and the transmission, see if it does a good job of cleaning, and that will be part of this video, so you can check that out. One thing that I thought was really interesting, a couple people suggested this. One of them, the owner of Science of Speed, he suggested using aluminum brightener. Aluminum brightener is used a lot of times in the boating industry. So you've got a big pontoon boat and the water kind of oxidizes the paint a little bit from driving through the, you know, the oils and the gas that are typically in the water in a marina. Apparently the aluminum brightener does a really good job of returning the aluminum back to its original form. Some of the aluminum brighteners actually contain kind of a diluted muriatic acid. I'm going to probably look at a couple different brands and see if there's one that's a little bit less caustic for use, and see how that does on this block as well. Now, the valve cover though, I'm obviously going to have to repaint it. I'm not sure I want to paint it black though, because that's going to kind of disappear in my engine bay. As you know, we painted it satin black. I mean, obviously, if the block is all bright and everything, it might look kind of good, particularly if I have maybe a stainless or a ceramic header on it. It might pop a little bit, but I haven't decided for sure what color I want to paint that. I was thinking at one point of actually painting it with like a polished, I don't know if you've seen the ceramic coated headers. I was thinking about painting it something like that. The problem is polishing it once it's painted. Is that going to be too gaudy? We'll just kind of have to see how that works out. There's no AC pump on this and no AC bracket. I believe the same D-series bracket that came on the stock engine will work on this block. I'll check it out and see. But that AC compressor was toast. There were two AC compressors that went with this engine back in the day. One of them was a Matsushita, the other one was a Sandin. The Sandins, I understand, are rebuildable, and the Matsushita's not so much. So what I might wind up doing is actually looking at some of the salvage yards in the northern part of the US to see if I can't find a good Sandin compressor to put on this, because typically they get used a lot less than the ones down in Arizona. Arizona is famous for just crushing AC compressors. And they're not really available aftermarket anymore, I don't believe, but I'll check into that as well. But I don't want to go pay, you know, $250, $300 for an AC compressor. I didn't even pay that much for this engine, so that would be kind of ridiculous. You can see here the plastics are just a little bit dingy. I don't know if there's a technique for reconditioning plastic. If you know of something like that, I would love to hear it. I'll try to figure something out to maybe you know, at least clean it up well, and but you know, kind of restoring the shine and stuff. I'm not so sure how to do that. But again, if you have a suggestion, please put it down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you have to say. These plastics probably haven't been available new for a decade or more. So I think I'm going to wind up having to work with what I have here. Last is the timing belt. While I have the plastics off, I might as well check the timing belt. I believe it's the same as an 88 Integra. By the way, that's what computer I'm going to be using, at least initially on this build. Anyway, I believe it's the same as the 88 Integra. I'll double check that and make sure it's correct. I think these had rather large timing gears. That's one of the reasons this bumps up so much. But I think the first thing I need to do is get in here, remove any of the hoses that I want to remove, remove the wiring harness, and kind of generally prep it for cleaning. I want to see if we can get this block back to its nice, bright, original form. So excuse me while I set up a time lapse, and I'll go ahead and pull everything off. The next part of the video is about cleaning up the motor, and you can see it's kind of in a disassembled state here. As I was cleaning it up, I found what I would consider some problems that bring into doubt the quality of the motor I've got here. So let me just kind of show you real quickly. You can see here that the some of the water passages are really corroded and clogged up, and good example is this one right here. This is This little port right here goes onto the back of the block and gives the idle air control valve its water, and it basically is just absolutely, there was no water passing through that. So the idle air control valve obviously wasn't working right. The water pump too looks pretty hideous. Looks like it's taken a couple impacts actually. You can see these fins bent over. This one kind of rusted away. I mean, obviously I shouldn't say that. The plan was to look at the timing belt and then decide whether or not to replace the water pump and the timing belt. The timing belt looked a little bit old, but once I saw the clogged water passages, there was just no way I was gonna put this motor in without doing a little checking. So along with clogged water passages, quite often, oh my God, along with clogged water passages, quite often you'll find a blown head gasket. So I decided to just go ahead and disassemble the engine, take a look and see what the water passages look like in the block. Originally I hoped I just could flush it out, but this is just horrible. So it's been a long time since I had to disassemble an engine. So we'll probably just put this on time lapse and let it run through. If I find out anything specific, we can go back and narrate that over the time lapse. But time to pull it apart. The camshafts look probably stock. They look stock, and they look in fairly good condition. There's not a lot of wear on any of the lobes, so they actually look really good. I think so far good news. Top end looks good. The head also looks really good. There's not a lot of oil staining in the top. The journals all look excellent. So good news. I feel a little bit more confident about this, but still, we're going to tear it down. Okay, so the head bolts don't look great. There's some rust on several of the bolts here, and I'm guessing that maybe this car might have sat for a while with a bad engine before it was finally junked. It'd be interesting. One of the things I had kind of a good feeling about when I bought the engine was the fact that the transmission had been recently rebuilt. You could tell by the sealant they used on the transmission, so I was kind of hopeful that it had been better maintained, and obviously the person was kind of trying to maintain it. They were spending money on it, but this doesn't look so good. We'll need new head bolts. Wow, can't believe how clogged these passages are. Need to probably take a look at the underside of the head as well. Well, here's the bottom of the head. The head gasket is still in place. Let's see if we can pull it off. Pretty corroded through right here. I probably should have marked which bolts had water on them so I could tell a little bit better. But I don't really see any evidence of a blown head gasket on top of the thing. But regardless, we're going to clean up the block and refresh it so that it's a little bit better for what we want to do. Let's go back. So let's take a look down inside the cylinder walls. As you can see down in here, there's just all sorts of garbage down inside. So clearly this thing wasn't cooling efficiently. A mere flush probably wasn't going to do anything for me. I hate these fiber head gaskets because you wind up having to kind of scrape the top in order to get it down, but I'm just going to send this off and have it refurbed a little bit. Normal soot buildup on top, probably ran with a check engine light for a while. Pistons look a little bit sooty, but it could also just be age. But well, we're going to have to finish tearing this down the rest of the way. I think I'm going to go get some sort of a drip pan for my setup here so that I'm not just spewing oil everywhere. Okay, we're back in the shop for another day. We're going to go ahead and break down the engine the rest of the way. It's about 114 outside right now, so here in the shop it's about 100 degrees with the swamp coolers blasting away. Hopefully they're not interrupting the sound too much. Anyway, we're going to take this thing apart and see what it all looks like. The bearings have some decent wear on them. They don't look bad or damaged at all, so I'm pretty encouraged by that. Definitely the coating's worn off though. We'll need new crank bearings. First look at our rod bearing, and it looks pretty good. Top side, not so good. I think we had a little knocking going on. Well, new rod bearings too. Number one cylinder is exhibiting a little bit less wear than the 2 and 3, but wear nevertheless. Didn't mean to drop that piston, but the thick layer of carbon actually protected it. Number 4 looks very similar to 2 and 3. Lovely. One of the bolts clearly got over tightened at some point and rounded off a little bit, but luckily a 6-point socket took it off. All in all, I gotta say, it's in relatively good shape. What I need to do now is actually measure the cylinder bores to make sure they're still round and they're within the tolerances of the rings. But I'm probably gonna wind up re-ringing this thing at a minimum possibly even overboring it. The bearings looked worn with a little bit of wear, looks like from a little pre-detonation, but they weren't beat up too badly, so I think everything's fine. The crank looks like it's in excellent shape. Basically, the cylinder bore is what I'm worried about, and how flat the head is. I'm guessing it's been overheated once or twice, but this thing is filthy. Check out all the stuff that fell out of it when we flipped it over. Stuff just came tumbling out of the top of the thing. Obviously, I'm going to have to do a really good cleanup job on the block. There's just a few more things I need to remove from it. Then I'm going to take it down to work, put a mic on it, check out the cylinder bores, and order up some bearings and some rings, and hopefully that's all I need. Well, just at first sight, I'd say the cylinder bores are okay. Quite often when they're really bad, there'll be a little bit of a ridge coming up from where the rings have traveled up to a certain point before going back down again. I don't really feel any ridge at all in there. You cannot see any of the hash marks you usually see, the cross hatching you usually see when an engine's been bored recently. So I believe this engine is just, other than putting the car and run, I don't think it's ever been taken apart and serviced. So obviously that's what we're going to do. Looking down in here now, just all sorts of garbage in here. Hopefully when we hot tank this thing, it'll take all that stuff off. But like I said, I just got a few things to pull off this, then I'm going to bring it down to work and do some measuring and see what else needs to be done. Hopefully we can get away with a fresh set of rings and a fresh set of bearings, and we'll be ready to put this thing in the car. I hope you learned something today. We'll see you next week. By the way, if you like what you saw, please think about hitting the subscribe button down below. And if you also click on the little bell, you'll get notifications whenever we send out a new video. And if you have a chance, head on over to the VTEC Academy website at vtec.academy or vtecacademy.com and check out some of the merchandise we have. We have some pretty cool t-shirts, and anything you buy actually helps us support the channel. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Bye.